Hi, welcome. I hope everybody's doing well, and I'm thrilled to have you guys on for the next week's call. I want to give a big shout out to our teachers, Teacher Appreciation Week, and thrilled that they're not getting forgotten in terms of what the work they're doing right now. Just tremendous amount of work happening with our teachers. I've had a lot of discussions actually about how we've really had to devolve a lot of responsibility down to instructors because they're now kind of the single point of contact for our students in many instances. So many thanks to all you folks. I'm going to turn it over to Travis Weaver and our board and adult education and literacy grants to go over the first item on our agenda. And I'm going to bring our agenda up. So just a second here. And Travis, if you want to get ready, we'll be ready to go.
He's going to be a few minutes, Anson. So if we want to keep the trains rolling, we can just move on to item B and go from there.
I appreciate that very much. The next item, so I'm going to move down here to general updates and survey updates. So we have, as usual, a full house of activity happening. I'm trying to consolidate things that I send out to you so that we have less emails coming from us, because I know you guys locally are extremely busy, but there is new little events happening every week. We're trying to stay abreast of them ourselves. Right now, we have some important deliverables and surveys out that I really want to ask everybody to pay attention to if you're doing anything on your computer and you have some time. One of them is a required deliverable update, which is this pandemic deliverable survey that got sent out. This had a really tight turnaround, and I apologize for that. And I'm thrilled that it looks like we've got about 23 people that have responded so far. But this is how we're going to be reporting to our commissioners the activities that you're doing related to expenditures on some of these additional funds. So the survey is due to this afternoon, and we've got, most of you have done one, but I see, I'm looking at it right now, Abilene, Brazos Valley, Dallas, Grayson, HGAC, Laredo, Odessa, Region 20, Texarkana, Victoria, Workforce Solutions, Tarrant County, and Isleta haven't done the survey yet. So if you guys could get that done today, that will help us provide an update next Tuesday. I have to kind of put everything together, send it out tomorrow to our commission staff, and then we will present it on Tuesday as an update, general update. So please get that filled out. It's not going to be 100% perfect. I understand you guys are busy and there's delays and things, but looking at the responses that are in so far, it looks like you guys have very, very much given it some considered thought. So I appreciate that very much. But, when the commission allocated the additional funding on the 14th of April, the idea was kind of like this was the first bite at the apple. And they wanted to make sure that they were providing enough funding, but not maybe too much at the very beginning, because there might have been other things that we need to fund. So we're looking at this to kind of get a sense of where we are, knowing that we're going to have our additional allocation in July. But this will help give us kind of a sense of not only expenditures and all of that, but also give us a good sense of what you're actually needing to fund, what the gaps are, because I think that's going to move around quite a bit for us in the first few months here. So your program support specialist will probably give you a reminder if you haven't filled this out today, but I'd love to get that filled out.
And so there's a clarification question.
Yeah,
is the survey only expenditures, or does it include obligations?
You can put obligations in there also, actually. And I imagine there'll be some of that in there. You can make a note on it when you do your little narrative. So basically you're putting in some amounts and then you're doing a narrative around that. But you could put obligations because I know there's probably a lot of those building up. Great clarification, by the way. Any other questions coming through on that?
No, sir.
Okay, great. So the next item I wanted to kind of talk about was integrated education and training. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about that topic in particular, and we're going to kind of pivot and get into that area more in the next few weeks and for the duration now. The reasoning is we've been so focused on all the distance information, the new student information, the remote testing information, which is still keeping us super busy. But we're going to have a conference call coming up here next Friday, and that'll be on IET particular. We had the first one last week, and I unfortunately had to miss it. But we have a survey that you can find the link for right here. It's not been released yet. It's being released right now. But that survey is going to be how we really want to start to get a sense of what is happening on IET. That's a different area in terms of review for us because it involves training, and training often cannot be done well remotely because it has, you know, hands-on aspects and practicum and stuff like that. So we want to get a sense of what you're able to do, and what you are doing. A lot of y'all are doing stuff already, and then equally get a sense of what the associated certifications and educational certificates that you're allowed or able to do look like, because at the end of the day, for folks to become employed, they need to kind of finish the training, get a completion of some sort of certification or industry recognized credential, and that's that requires testing. So please fill that out, give it some time, send it to the right people in your organization if you're not the go-to expert on that. And for sure, I want to be able to make sure that we're focused on getting good information back out to you in terms of updated guidance. This is kind of an agency-wide effort. We're kind of running out in front on this in AEL, but our other divisions are kind of pivoting in this direction and are going to be surveying colleges overall to find out what is happening related to training. The other piece that we're going to, provide to you in the coming months is kind of forecast of what the new economy looks like in terms of jobs. We have an extraordinary amount of individuals unemployed, but we also have a lot of industries that are, have laid off a lot. They may begin rehiring. They may rehire a lot more. They may rehire not as much. And then we have new areas that we suspect might open up in terms of being high demand occupations. So we don't have that information yet, but our labor market and career information group is looking at job postings to see who's hiring, what are they hiring in, et cetera. So that's going to be something that's going to evolve over the next year, where you can expect us to be in a very different environment in terms of labor market for the next year or two for sure. So that'll be something for training in IT. Everybody wants to put their best foot forward in terms of doing right by students, in terms of helping them get the best jobs possible. And that's going to change quite a bit. And there may be training programs that 6 months ago were very popular and were growing that may not be growing as much right now. And we need to let you know that so that we don't unfortunately train people for jobs that may or may not exist in the way that they used to. The last item I wanted to remind you of, and then we'll see if Travis is up and teed up, is the information on remote testing. Last call, I sent out a draft letter on remote testing and a survey associated with it. I put the link for the survey here. Just a mighty handful of people have provided feedback because you're so busy. But this will be a big letter for us. It'll evolve a lot. It's already evolved since last week in terms of items that I've added since the TABE trainings and some of the chats that were going on in those trainings, which were very good. We got to be proud. We've trained 600 people on Best Point 2.0 and 600 on TABE. So that's just some amazing volume, I think, for us, and really happy that you guys have picked this up. So we're going to try to finalize this letter tomorrow and then get it out next week, most likely. So if you want to give a look at it, ask some questions, nothing's off the table, please fill out the survey and just let us know what your thoughts are. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Travis and see if he's all teed up yet. Travis, you there?
Anson, while we're waiting, there's another question.
Okay.
Brenda's asking, may we submit one survey for IET EL Civics and another for regular IETs?
Yes, you surely could do that. Yes, you can combine them. You know, either way you want to get that information to us. And we're not going to be too particular.
And that's it.
Okay. Travis, you available yet? Ashley, do you know?
I don't know, but it would seem
Okay.
that he's not here.
Yeah, I've been checking the participant list. Okay. Well, we can continue on. It's no biggie. Just some other notices. The FAQ, if you haven't noticed, has been updated this week, early in the week. Not a lot of questions, but we did add questions related to temporary telephones or burner phones, as they call them, and some other information there for you. And we note all the changes with we put new next to them so you know which ones to look for. I think it's up to 41 pages. Elaine has been wonderful in helping me out to get that thing formatted and published and easy to reference. So keep looking at that. We're expecting to make another revision next week. And there, I'm hoping we can add, a good amount of questions on training and IET, because we only have 2 or 3 questions on there currently. The other information that I would like to share with you is that we have updated the remote testing chart. If you haven't noticed, added the information on TABE, and that's going to be also very of great interest to you guys as we move forward here. And we're going to try to use that chart to kind of summarize what the publishers are saying, but always, of course, advise you to go to the test publishers for their guidance on how to deliver remote instruction. And T-Call, Tracy Hendricks, and Robin Booth and others have been wonderful in keeping us up to date on that extremely important topic. And then the last item before I turn it over to Elena Madrid is we have a due date on our PASSIS tracker. Remember, our staff determined eligibility tracker is an Excel spreadsheet that the grant recipients only received. And that was to collect information on new students coming into the system that aren't able to be put into teams fully because they can't be placed into a class without a test. And that's due on the 15th. And I wanted to say that the data, sign off, and the 15th is a big date for information for us. We are trying to do some forecasts of what performance will look like for this year, which I know is on a lot of people's minds, and for next year. I know the topic of carry forward targets, all of these things are really got a lot of you guys thinking. And I don't want you to get too obsessed with that, but I want to be able to give you some guidance soon here. So Adam Leonard's been working with me, and I confirmed to him that by the 15th, we should have a very good sense of what the new normal looks like. New students, what does that look like coming in? It's probably slow right now, but it's picking up. And then, how many students have really transitioned into remote and distance, and do we still have retained? We don't have a good sense except for what you've told us on surveys, but that's not as solid information as Adam needs to kind of do some forecasts. No decisions really have been made on any of these topics for the programs at TWC, so we're all on the same page in terms of trying to just do some steady analysis and thinking about that. I'm on a chat board with other states, and they're kind of in the same place too. So we're all kind of analyzing and sharing what we're doing to do that, get that feedback out to you. So with that, I'm going to turn the screen over to Elena Madrid. Elena, if you want to take control here, or if you can help us out there, Deb. She's going to talk about an event we have coming up on the 18th of May, and it's going to be a webinar. But Elena's been doing some forecasting, or not forecasting, but really process planning on student flows coming into adult ed centers. And she's done a great job of putting together kind of an example of a generic kind of student flow with some of the consideration points that providers might consider as you bring in students into the system, especially new students. Many of y'all have done this already because you're up and running and doing this. I would suspect that some people are better at it than others because that's a certain skill set, and some of us have it and some don't. I don't really. But Elena has a good sense of project management and project planning. So I asked her, she shared this with my team last week, and we got really excited about it because it allowed us to kind of see things in a kind of a systems way, which I think really helped us. So what we want to do is share, Elena's going to share kind of her feedback on that and the example. And then I'm going to, we're going to conduct a phone call, and Elena will lead it next week. And we're going to ask a couple of you guys, grantees out there, to join us because I suspect we've got some real strong examples out there already of people that are good project managers that have done this already. And then that way we can all benefit from kind of different ways of looking at student flow in a remote world. I'm really excited about it. Y'all are doing it. You're probably feeling like you're doing it well, kind of well, still figuring it out. Maybe you feel like it's a disaster. I don't know. It's a different way of looking at student process for sure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elena and thank her very much for leading this section of the agenda. Thank you, Elena.
Thanks, Anson. So some of you already might be familiar with this. My programs, I've been sharing this with you a couple of weeks already. And mainly I created this for the participant status because the programs know that participation, once you have it, you keep it until you lose it when people are exited. And we know that going into the new program year, it's really, really important to maintain that participant status in order to meet the targets. So in this situation right now, it's highly likely that some of your students have stopped attending classes for a couple of different reasons. And so I wanted to identify, who were the people or students that were going to be staying in the classes. And they most likely have one of these three things. They have computer skills, they have access to internet, and they have access to either a computer or a cell phone, so that they can use the software that's been approved or some of the remote learning software that the instructors have been using or platforms. So that really, a lot of students don't fall into that category. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I was thinking about, well, what do we need to then do to assess these individuals? Well, first of all, we need to assess the situation. We really have to understand who falls into these categories. We have a name on a list. We understand what their specific issue is so that we can help them. And we can either give them computer training or computer literacy, or we can provide technology if you have the capability of doing that, you have the availability, and also access to internet if that's also possible, or helping them to problem solve through that. So this schematic I created to try to explain this to people, because sometimes it's hard to, just say something and people can envision it and, everybody gets it. So I was hoping that, this would really help people with their processes. So the first two green boxes are, situations where people they have the computer literacy, they have everything that they need, they can successfully go into a classroom. So you can see that flow here, with your current participants. You just put them into some orientation or online learning, and then you can put them into class. But then you have everybody else. People with little to no computer literacy skills, the solution is pretty easy. You can create computer literacy for them. And give that to them before they go into orientation for online and remote learning and then into a class. But then you have everybody else in the white boxes. So that's where the problem solving really steps off a level. But what I wanted to do on this opportunity that Anson is providing for me, I'm very happy to share this with everybody and not just my providers, but come forward and really talk through this. But I want to invite other people in the field that maybe have some solutions to these issues already, and we can present it as a team so that everybody out in the field is getting the information at the same time. It's not just, you know, some are privileged while others aren't, depending on what and who is providing service to them. So I know that I heard some things about ACC and some of the wonderful things you did in the transitioning for your teachers. So I wanted to see if Kathy Dowdy would like to join me, and if there's anybody else in the field. So this is for students, but I want to also include people that can speak to the instructors and how the transition was successful for them. Because even though we get the students into the classroom, if we don't have the instructor in place in the way that we need them to support the students successfully and to be engaged in the classroom, you're going to lose them anyways. So we need those things in place. It's not just helping the students, it's also helping the staff, the team, the instructors. So I would like to do that presentation. When did you say, Anson? It would be on the 18th, I think. So anybody that would like to, yes, email me please, or Elena, our admin, and let me know that you would like to be in on this. I'm looking for at least 2 to 3 people, maybe 4, that would like to work together to create something for the 18th. So that's all I have.
All right, yeah, we're getting some good feedback in the chat about this, Elena, and I suspect this is going to be really popular. You know, especially for new students, this triaging at the very beginning, I'm sure everybody is like figuring that out really quickly. But, you know, I had a chat with someone about 2 weeks ago, and, you know, it was this whole kind of new layer that you have to apply to student intake, because, you know, we typically sort students by their levels, by their goals, things like that. Now they've got to be sorted also by their abilities on computers, or their access to the internet, to a computer, and these different things. So, you know, now you're looking at your level 1 ESL, and you're not just saying, well, here's level 1 ESL, but you've got to say, well, which ones have access, which ones don't, what kind of access is it? And then you kind of start to sort against the teachers. Who is, you know, which teachers are the best at serving level 1 remotely, which ones need more, you know, are working with other teachers. So it's a different layer. And as we see a lot more students come into our system, there's going to have to be like a team that's going to really have to do that assessment up front. And, you know, Elena's take on this is like the first run at this. I think it's, as a field, we can really start to see how this plays out and enhance this as we move forward. But I don't think there's any one-size-fits-all model. Rural areas, of course, have different access issues. So that would be like a different box here. You know, so there's some other aspects to it that I think we're going to really learn a lot. I think also consortia have to determine, like, do you want to have a single model, or is this what you're going to devolve the responsibility down to your providers? A lot of considerations there. So I look forward to the 18th. We're going to get the agenda sent out and the link sent to you today or Monday, and go ahead and anticipate that. But if you've given a lot of thought to this, and you may even have an image like this, because that might be the easiest way to kind of talk with staff when you're working remotely, please let us know, even if it's just a beginning idea. I like the beginning ideas because a lot of people are at that phase, and they like to, you know, not just hear the experts, they like to hear people that are learning it right now. and smaller programs, rural programs. Anybody that wants to raise their hand and try out and share, we'd very much appreciate it as a field. Are there any other questions coming in? I haven't been checking. I'm getting some.
Well, Susan Gussler said she's staying in today for Kathy Dowdy. I know you'd mentioned her name earlier. I didn't know if you needed anything from her. And then Mahalia answered the question on the passes tracker.
Yeah.
It is to be submitted. And then Sherry Smith Dennis wondered. Okay.
I saw that. Yeah. So Sherry had a question about FAQs. And bless your heart, Sherry, you're printing out the whole FAQ every week. That's a lot of paper. I like the idea, and we've talked about this. Sherry asks if we can somehow segment the new questions separately from the entire FAQ so that she doesn't have to print out the whole FAQ every time something new happens. I like the idea. I've thought about that actually. So I think what we'll do, we like to maintain the FAQ as one document because the questions fall into categories and we cross-reference in the FAQ to other sections. But I think it's not too much to say that we could add an addendum that would be what's new this week. And then that way you only have to print a page out or 2 pages. So let me talk to Elena. She's very creative on document production. And we'll see what we can do there. So if there's any other questions for Elena, please let us know during the call. I want to thank her so much. This was like she's a busy individual, like my whole team, but she came out with this, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Let's stop and take some time to discuss it with the providers because it's really a great resource. I think that discussion on the 18th is going to be wonderful. And my team, I can't say enough about how much they've been really supportive. And you guys in the field have been so wonderful in giving me personal shout outs about how wonderful folks have been in helping you out. So I want to give thanks to my team for just great work they've been doing out there. I heard Travis is online, and the much awaited presence of Travis is here. We're thrilled to death to have him. And let me get the agenda back up, Travis, and walk through your points there. Busy guy, Travis Weaver, you're up, and here is the agenda.
Okay, good. Oh, thank you. And thanks. Apologize for not being here at the beginning. Like Anson, I have meetings throughout the day that really run back to back. So I appreciate the time here, Anson. So, hey, I wanted to give you guys a couple announcements where everything is in regards to our WII grants, that the TCAL amendment. This is the additional $500,000 and your performance-based funding suites, basically, of your year 1, quarter 4, and year 2, quarter 2. And so I'm actually, hold on a second. There we go. I'm looking for the actual thing. So right now I can tell you that for WII, those grants are in process, and we're at several stages. So I know that we have 4 that are currently executed. So 4 of you of the 37 have them already. 6 of them are at grantee signatures, so they're with you, but they have not been signed. We have 10 that are currently with Courtney, or probably already signed by Courtney, so they're probably with you by now. And the others are with, they're at different stages through their the review process. So, but the good news is that they are moving, and half of you probably already have them, and the other half will have them very soon. And I know that I think Anson discussed the survey for this earlier, and so it's the reporting on this particular grant will be pretty essential. In regards to the performance-based funding sweepback, we have 7 of those. We did 21 amendments, and 7 of those have been fully executed, 4 with grantee signature, and we do have several that are currently still in the last part of the review. And so we are working with our internal partners to nudge those out of what we call a choke position. It's a RPI, rapid process improvement term, and to move them out of a choke position so we can get them out to you. And for TCAL, our good friends there, as you all know, you all signed over your annual funding, and so the process of moving forward with your the $500,000 that the commission approved back on the 14th. That is currently at the last part of the review stage, and hopefully by this call, or hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, you should have that with you, Ms. Hargrove, and you should be able to sign that and move forward with that. So.
Thank you.
We did add extra deliverables, one more deliverable. That was for the units, the 20 in English and 20 in Spanish, and as part of the deliverables. So you'll need to be able to report that in addition to everything else that you report to us. So just to let you know that. The last thing here is year 3 funds. So we found out yesterday that, so the commission is going on, finance is going on Tuesday for commission action for all the WIOA, which also includes Title II for AEL, but they're only going to be able to provide the amounts for each that is designated for each board area, which means that we don't have the splits, which means we don't, what I mean by that is that we won't have the grantee amounts for all 37, and we won't have the, how much is for AEL combined, how much is for EL civics, how much is for performance-based funding, and your admin. And so I did ask for an ETA on that, and they did say that they would try to get that done by the end of the month, which, you know, as a person who tries to get stuff done a month early, I cringed very heavily at that discussion. So I will keep trying to work with my boss and to work with our budget folks in finance to see if we can't get them to get that done faster. Now, we are going to put a difference for year 3. So I know that the past 2 years, we've, you know, once we've gotten the numbers for each of the grantees, we have sent out your detailed B1, your detailed budget, and given you a week to basically supply that back to us. We're not going to do that this year. So because if we're running up against it, you know, at the end of May, and knowing our system and knowing that I have to get, you know, not only 4 sets of grants for WIOA for the boards, but also 37 of these year 3 amendments, we're going to have a lot of items, grants that are, and grant amendments that are going through our system at that point. So to make it simplified for us and also for you all, we are going to just do a summary B1, a summary budget summary that we will add to the grant. And then as a deliverable, we will request a detailed budget, you know, that's within 30 days of execution. So we're not going to ask you to fill one out right away, you know, and have you guys return it and, you know, drop everything so you can fill out your detailed budget. But we will have you, but we'll give you 30 days upon execution to go ahead and give that to us. Right now, we're just looking at it, you know, this is how much for program, this is how much for performance-based funding, this is how much for admin in both categories. And so we're again trying to simplify that for you all. And the final thing I want to say before I take questions is that this is really kind of sad news for me. And my grant manager, Ashley Krause, is moving on, and her last day with us is Friday, May 15th. And in fact, you know, I haven't seen Ashley since I had to go home, so I'll actually be able to see her on the 15th because I have to collect her badge and laptop. But Ashley has contributed so much to my department and for the AEL team to get us back, you know, on track where we should be. And it's to me, it's just, you know, I'm really bummed that she's moving out because she not only has she helped us, but I know she's been beneficial for Anson's team on the program side, and basically really be able to talk about all the issues that we talk about every day in AEL. And but I will tell you that Kara and Renee and I we will trudge on, and we have a job with the posting should be up very soon, and because Courtney signed, our division director signed off on it. we will do our best to get somebody in to help us out very quickly. And Anson, that's all I have. Any questions from the providers?
I'm looking. I can tell you there's a lot of love going out for Ashley there, and she's online. So Ashley, thank you for your service. We're going to miss you out there for sure. I'm looking through here. Anything particular for Travis that you're seeing, Deb? I saw people aren't too worried. Kim Benton's not too worried about the timing of the grants. Seems to be about when we typically have these things out. We did get some comments too on people that are going to support Elena there. So everybody that raised their hand to kind of agree to help us out there, we really appreciate it. Anything for Travis? Let's see here.
There was a question.
One from Ashley Trevino.
Yeah, so Ashley was asking if the grants have been amended for the additional activities, and that's happened already. So that's why we kind of pulled them back and brought them back out. And we have a revised adult education and literacy letter. I think it's 0420 that's going through edits right now, that we're going to provide the policy kind of framework for the funding there. And then, of course, the survey that most of y'all have filled out for reporting on those deliverables is going to be the way we kind of tell that story to our commissioners. And
any comments on reobligated funds?
Yeah, I saw that from Joe, and we're still in discussion about that in terms of funding. Travis, did you want to say kind of where that is from your perspective?
So, yeah. So right now, unfortunately, there's not a decision from leadership. We have provided recommendations, and some of those recommendations may not be, so we provided options, and a lot of those options could be, yes, we would go ahead with the re-op, de-op as recommended, or there could be other items or other that we would want to add into the as part of the obligation, which would change the numbers or not do it at all. And so I know our leadership is looking at those items, and but one of the things I wanted to bring up real quickly, and Anson, I forgot to say this, but one of the things that we ran into when we were getting the performance-based funding amendments out and the WII grants out is that I think about 5 different times we ran into a situation where the signature authority on the provider side had changed. And so, so it's a, I know it's a requirement of the contract that if you all have a position change, is the signature authority for your entity, it would be great if you guys could just tell us right away. I know that we send friendly reminders out quarterly, but when we get to this time of year and we're trying to get your money out the door for you, and we run into a situation where it gets stopped because the signature authority is no longer there, then we're going to track down from you who it is. We got to pull it back, and not to say that there's a cost involved, there is, but we just want to make sure that we keep our records up to date. So if you guys could help us out, if you guys know if you have a position change and that's a signature authority for you all, please let your grant manager know so we can go ahead and update that. Because we get questions all the time for our grant administration office. Do you have the correct signature authority? And of course our response is, as far as we know, yes, because we have been told. So that's the so that's the other thing I want to bring up. And then the other thing I want you all to take a look at is, one of the things that we have recommended to leadership is there are a lot of you that still have a significant year 1 balances. And so what we would like you to do is that we would want you to look at your year 2 expenditures as we get closer to June, because basically those monies are gone June 30th, right? And we want you to be able to spend down. So what we want you to do is take the year 2 money, right, and move those expenditures back to year 1. Zeroes down your year 1 balances, basically. So we clear up year 1. And so basically, in some cases, you may have a higher rollover going into year three. But what I'm trying to do is not have a supplemental allocation to you all sometime late next fall. And we all been through this several times in the last 6 years, that when we have provided supplemental allocation, it's a killer for you all, because I mean, you're running on the current budget, and then all of a sudden you get this influx of money and you haven't planned for it. And it usually happens in December or January, when most of your enrollments have already taken place for the year. So then, and you're figuring out how to spend money, and then you're hearing from us going, why aren't you spending your money? So I really want to avoid that this year. And the best way to do that is that if you still have a significant balance, and we can certainly tell you, and I think we've actually told you, I think Ashley sent out emails to all of you who had balances in year 1 to really work with your accounting departments and move those expenditures that you booked to year 2, book it back to year 1, or what we call FIFO, and that way we can zero out all your year 1 balances, move forward with year 2, avoid a supplemental allocation coming into late fall. And that way we also have, you all know what your year 3, what you're going to have for year 3, July 1. And, and then at that point you can just go pedal to the metal and, and not worry about some type of supplemental allocation coming. And that, and this is what you're going to be able to spend for year 3. What's that left over from your year 2 and year 3 your allocations. So, but also think about, if you have balances that, I mean, if you're in a situation where basically you just can't spend the money, and because you may have this grant or you may have other AEL state leadership funds that are basically kind of serving the same customers, you may want to think about asking us for a voluntary deobligation, because we know that there's providers out there that that are spending money at a good clip with serving their customers, that have communicated to my team, myself, and also to Anson and his team that they need money. And so we're looking for a situation where you want to right size your program. And we can, and I would encourage you to talk to me and Anson about this offline, that, deobbing $100, $200, maybe $300,000 from your current grant would help you right size it and be able to provide that to your partners here in other parts of the state, to obviously serve more customers. We would encourage that conversation, and so just be mindful of that. It's not a commission re-ob but it's more of it's a voluntary deob. We would even look at even part of, since we're not having AEL performance awards this year that you only get at the conference, at the annual conference, because that's been taken away for this year only. So there's really no penalty, even if you voluntarily deob money, that you would not be, it would not go against you if you were in line for a conference award for this year, since there are no conference awards. So we would just encourage that. And because, I'd rather have you right size your program, and have that, and take that stress away, and give it to those providers who are really rolling, with enrollments, and help them out, and obviously right sizing their program. And so, but, I want to leave that door open, and if you want to talk to us, me and Anson offline about that, we're more than happy to do that. Anson?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing it up, Travis. And I want to underscore something Travis said at the end. Not a lot of people know about involuntary deob. It's been done before, so we've done it in adult ed before. And I want to underscore the kind of non-punitive aspect of this. As so you know, sometimes there's this idea, and there has been in the past a sense that, or really, especially because of the awards, if you deobligate funds, you would become ineligible for an award, and that's why Travis was bringing up the awards. Since there are no awards, that doesn't apply. But the punitive aspect of this is not applying also because you're dealing with forces that are beyond our control in terms of service delivery. So despite as much energy as you want to throw at things during this pandemic period, you may or may not be expending at the rate that you were. Some of you may be spending more because of additional costs. Some of you may be spending much less. And so that's the other thing, is it's like very unfair for us to consider that you're not meeting your expenditures when the whole world has been turned inside out in terms of service delivery. So this provides a great service to the state of Texas adult ed program in general, because some of the providers on this call are needing funding, and it's a much less onerous process for a provider to involuntarily or voluntarily give us an amount of money than it is for us to go through a commission action where we have to take it involuntarily from them through a deobligation. So definitely talk to me or Travis. We both know quite a bit about it. I'll very much underscore, and we can put in writing that there would be no punitive aspect of this, because these kind of things, when you go and tell your superintendent or your chancellor or your president, I want to give back, $300,000 or $100,000, they're going to probably have a lot of questions and not see that as a positive aspect. So I would also open the door to say that I would be happy to talk with leadership at your organization about that, and let them know that this is actually would be seen as a service to the field, and alleviate a lot of the challenges we're having as a state in terms of right sizing some budgets. So I'm glad you brought that up, Travis. Completely forgot about that on the agenda. But now is the time for that, and it's good discussion point for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Edson.
Any questions come in, Deb? I haven't been looking.
No, questions that Kara has been answering. Oh, wait,
Okay.
wait, Joe has one. He just popped up. If a voluntary deobligation occurred this year, would it automatically impact the grants in the future? I get that spending may be down, but that should not be seen as predictive in future years. So I guess he's asking, is it going to be penalized for doing it this year?
No, it would not. The way the allocations work is the allocations are kind of separate from what the actual expenditures are. When we do the allocations, which are coming up to the commission next week, that's based on the number of individuals and the eligibility of individuals in a service area based on the census and other data. So if you gave back money this year, that's not going to impact how much you get next year. So that would not be a concern. No, Joe.
No, but good question.
Yeah. And in adult ed, just so everybody knows, there is no, what do they call it? The use it or lose it model, where if you don't spend a certain amount this year, your allocation is reduced by that commensurate amount the next year or anything like that. That's not applied. Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll keep going here. And as you guys, you're probably talking around to yourself at least about this, please put it in the chat so we can answer your questions. Lorraine actually just asked one here. If the obligation is done, will the enrollment target also be adjusted? I knew that one was coming. So that goes back to the topic of carry forward targets. And we have not settled on how we're going to do this for the next year. I can tell you that. So, but we would take it, we're going to be sure that there wouldn't be any punitive aspect of doing this on the performance side, the target side, as well as the financial side. But if we're going to have carry forward targets, how those will look, we have not decided yet. And that's why the May 15th data is so important for us. We need to get a sense of what the new normal is like, knowing it's going to be dramatically different. And Adam is a very measured individual. He really thinks these things through. I've been rushing him to some answers, and he's been politely holding me back. But I think the agency's circling around to figure out what we're going to do in terms of this year's performance. I'm glad you're thinking about that, Lorraine. Okay, I'm going to go back and share my screen to get us back on the agenda. And I think next up is going to be Mahalia. So Mahalia, you're on deck. And did we got it? Yep, we got it here.
Good morning, everybody. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of 2 webinars that are going to be taking place next week. You can also find them in the professional development section of the agenda. I just wanted to kind of give you a little glimpse into what is going to be on those webinars so that you can choose whether or not you want to attend. If you do, you will register in the PD portal. So we have a Manager Monday webinar on next Monday, and both of these are going to be, so there's one on Monday, there's also a Teacher Tuesday webinar. Both of these are going to be in regards to the MSG management report that came out back in March. And what I will basically be doing is telling you a little bit about the report features and functions. Hopefully those of you out there have been looking at it, you've been using it already and kind of playing around with it. I just want to get these 2 quick webinars out there. The one on Monday is going to be more geared to how administrators, directors, quality assurance staff can really utilize the report locally. And then the webinar on Tuesday is going to be more focused on, the teacher level interaction, how an instructor can utilize the report or Career Navigator or something like that. So they're going to have very similar beginnings, and then we'll kind of dive into a little bit more practical uses based off of whether or not you're in an administrator function or you're in an instructor function. So just keep in mind that those are going to be available. The next item I have on here is about the Teams 5.1 release. Right now that's scheduled for deployment on May 15th. Usually these, when they are scheduled, they'll go out the morning of. So Teams will be unavailable the morning that deploys on May 15th. For a little bit. I may actually need to extend that deadline. I'm just not quite sure yet. I'll keep you guys posted if we end up having to extend the deadline, because we're working on some last minute fixes for that. The release notes, I've started this process, I think last year, about every time we have a new Teams release, I release a document that's called a Teams release notes. I hope you guys are using this locally for your training purposes. This one's going to be quite detailed, and just a reminder of what's going to be coming out in this release. We're going to have the addition of a supportive services page in Teams. That's going to allow you the capability of entering in your high school equivalency vouchers and also your foreign trained credential translation services. If you're providing those, you'll have the capability of now entering those into Teams. And then you're also going to have a new employment outcomes page. So while we are putting out money to fund staff and follow-up services, board interaction, we're going to have an employment outcomes page in Teams as well, which is going to allow you to enter in supplemental wages for individuals. So if you have individuals that either don't have a Social Security number or have chose not to disclose a Social Security number to you, you will have a mechanism in Teams to report employment so that you can still capture them for the purposes of performance, for those exit-based performance measures that have to do with employment. So those are the 2 things that are coming out in this current release. The release notes are going to be quite detailed. We're going to do a few different things in terms of the technical assistance on that. The employment outcomes is pretty specific in terms of what we need to collect for reporting purposes. So you'll just be seeing some things come out on that. So just kind of be aware. They'll be coming out through your program specialist, and they'll be holding some group technical assistance trainings for that. The next item I have here, we've been getting a lot of questions about the potential match report in Teams. We did, I don't know if you guys will remember, but at the end of last year, we did a kind of dry run for some new match requirements that we have with TEA. Previously, when we did our high school equivalency text chase matches with TEA, it had to match on all 4 components in order for it to be a direct match. And those 4 components were social security number, name, first name, last name, and date of birth all had to match exactly for it to be a match. We changed the process, and that went final back in February. So you'll see that you maybe at the beginning of the year, you had quite a few students that were falling on your potential match. When we implemented this process to be a permanent nightly process, then you probably saw a lot of people fall off of that report. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that's normal. And you will probably have a lot less people falling on your potential match report. And I just wanted you to know that that's normal. The reason that that is happening is because we are now matching on, if the social security number matches, it's an automatic match. It doesn't matter if the name and date of birth are different. If the social is the same, it's an automatic match. If the first name, last name, and date of birth is the same, it's a match, even if the social doesn't match. So we kind of created some things to allow us to get just basically better performance for you guys to show up in both your measurable skills gains and also your credential measures. So that went into permanent effect in February. So that's why that potential match report's, going to be less onerous for you guys. So hopefully you'll appreciate that. And that is pretty much all I got. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I will answer them.
All right. Any questions for Mahalia there? Good information. As I tee up Fabiana, she's going to talk about the public comment we have on the street for some rules that were in development. And I wanted to kind of front that by saying one of these has to do with the high school equivalency subsidy. And I know that's a lot on people's minds. I think soon as GED and HiSET go live with remote testing, all of a sudden everybody's going to be like, where's our vouchers? So I wanted to let you know that all the different elements of that are moving along very smoothly, and I think we're on track. I'm working on a guide right now that will be kind of the implementation guide for this for you at a local level. So know that that's in the works. There's, right now we've been dealing with all the kind of systematic nuts and bolts, the rules, the funding, the contracting. But you guys need the driving instructions for local delivery. So those will be they're in development. I can't give you a date of when we'll have that out, but I really enjoyed working on it this weekend. So I'm going to rush it through on my end because I really think it's a powerful document. It can be really helpful. But what I want to do is get it to you as a draft pretty early on. Because I'm not going to pretend to have figured everything out, and we want to be able to go live with the vouchers in a way that we don't have to deal with a lot of delay because we didn't address something or we got something wrong or we didn't say enough about something else. So look for that, and then maybe the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, depending on how much coffee I drink. But I really am excited to get that out. That's going to be such a great thing for our students. But Fabiana, tell us about how they can contribute to helping shape that process through the rule comment.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine.
Great. Okay. Well, good morning. I hope everyone's doing well. I wanted to just flag an upcoming deadline coming on Monday, I believe is the 11th. On the T-call page right at the top of the TWC communications, there's a bulleted item for where you can find all this information. And T-call, thank you so much for making all this information central and easy to find, so we're not flooding people's inboxes and things get overlooked. But I just wanted to remind everyone that we have right now the policy concept posted, and what that is just kind of a high-level view of how we intend to implement a couple of bills that were passed this legislative session. Of course, one of those is the high school equivalency subsidy program, and the other is related to the performance-based funding criteria. So I think we've kept you all in the loop over the last few months on how that's developing, but please take a look at how we intend to implement that statute via our rule, because that'll, at the end of the day, impact all of us and our students. So take a look when you open the policy concept itself. Again, it's only a couple of pages. There's underlying text throughout, and that underlying text is how we as an agency intend to propose this in rule. And that rule will dictate how we implement that statute. So for concerning the high school equivalency voucher program, which Anson was just talking about, that talks about, defines a few terms like what we mean by voucher and subsidy and who is eligible to receive that, and how we intend to distribute those vouchers from GED and HiSET. So take a look. If you have any questions, I really do urge you to send a comment to that email that's there. I think it's TWC policy comments. And then just so you know, we are posting, I think we've only received 2 comments from the public, and we are posting those on the T-call page as well. Just so you're not surprised, we do include the information on who submitted those comments, because as an agency, that's our normal process. Usually we send out an email circulating the emails we received. But again, just to keep everything centralized and easy to find, we just put that on a link on the T-call site. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I saw Tiffany had a question or a comment on how GED testing is asking for the Teams ID. So I'll let Anson speak to that, because that kind of relates back to this high school equivalency process. But thank you. Monday, the 11th is the deadline. Please submit a comment just so we can see what kind of concerns or comments you might have. Thank you.
And Fabiana, there's a comment from Susan Gussler. Is the 70% getting their HSC the same year they enroll performance-based funding measure open for comment, or is it only the voucher aspects of the document?
All of it. So both. That's a very good question. So the policy concept is addressing House Bill 1949, which is the performance based funding criteria Susan just asked about. And the other bill is House Bill 3, which is the high school equivalency subsidy. So because these are required by in statute, those are the 2 elements we did want to get feedback on. So good question.
And that's all the questions.
And I believe we did get a comment on the performance-based funding. So if you open that link to the Word doc on the T-call site, I think it says comments received can be found here, and there's a hyperlink. Click on that and you can see what sorts of comments we've received from the field. And I think we've received one on that.
Yep.
And Fabiana, there is one more question from Oscar Garcia. Is there a reason why voucher recipients must be over 21 or over? Approximately 36% of our students are underage.
That is a good question. That is in statute. So in the bill itself, it defines the eligibility of the only eligibility requirement in statute is an individual 21 years of and older. So that's the law.
And then,
but you know, that is a good, you know, I would say if that is something you want to comment on, that, you know, this mechanism we have in place, this comment period, would be a good time to do that, because as we move forward into this rules phase and making these rules actually final, the comments are likely something we will address publicly.
And then Michelle has a question. The AEL provider is responsible for sharing the team's ID for the student to enter into GED Manager.
Yeah, I want to let Mahalia address those GED Manager Teams ID questions. So Mahalia, if you're on, could you jump on and look at some of those in the chat?
Sure. So a couple of really good points. We in the course of this process for doing the high school equivalency vouchers, we took the opportunity and I asked them if we could provide the team's ID number. For that's for two purposes. One, it's going to make it much easier for us to reconcile the voucher process in terms of vouchers that are being redeemed for testing, but it's also going to give us, as Tiffany pointed out, a better matching capabilities whenever the credential is earned and a test are taken, and so that we can get those scores. So it's kind of a twofold process on our end. Michelle asked a really good question about if as a grantee, you would need to provide the student with their participant ID at the time that they register or schedule their test? And the answer to that is yes. That's going to be something, and when the process finally comes out to kind of give you guys some instructions on what we want this to look like, that's going to be one of the requirements. So when a student goes in to register and schedule their test, there's going to be an optional field for them, and we'll have directions in terms of which field you'll use to put the team's ID number in there. Now, if they don't use it at the point that they register, you can always go back in and update it in the student's profile, but it's not something, at least at this point, it's not going to be something that you guys will be able to amend, because it is going to be a student account that they create. They would have to be the ones that, would go in there and update their profile so that we can have that information for reconciliation purposes. So that's a really good question there.
All right, yeah, and I saw Eduardo and someone else was asking about, I guess it was Oscar down in Southwest Texas Junior College, Eduardo from Laredo College, about the 21 years. I would say you often see that because that's the age, unless they go into dropout recovery or something, where a student is no longer allowed to be in public school in terms of some of the rules. So they typically don't like to implement programs for high school equivalency that would kind of be incentive to make students drop out of high school. So if they could get their GED for free or something that might cause people to drop out of high school. So sometimes they set a 21-year age for that purpose. But it does mean that it cuts out a lot of students that we serve in our program for sure. Okay. We're going to move on here to distance learning, and I'm going to share the screen back over to the agenda, and Lori Slayton's going to take the stage here and talk about some distance learning information. Lori, take it away.
Good morning. Let's see here. I want to share my screen. Okay. I am the bringer of lighthearted news today. There's a lot of heavy stuff on this agenda. So on distance learning, we had originally waived to May 15th the policy, the DL policy that says you have to take modules 1 and 3. And we relaxed that through May 15th because we were having such a surge in distance learning. And so what we're doing is we're starting over kind of. We're gonna rebuild the policy. We're rebuilding the modules themselves. And the only thing that's gonna be required through the end of this year, the end of this program year, is gonna be module 1, which is nuts and bolts for distance learning. It's in the PD portal. It's not very long. It's a really good course, and that will be for everybody that's doing distance learning. Will need to take it. If you haven't already, more than likely you've already taken it. One thing I did want to show you real quick is if you go to the TCAL webpage and you go to the institutes, you go to Distance Learning and Technology Institute, right here on the left-hand side toward the bottom is your distance learning policy, the plan, the approved curriculum. wanted you to see in the policy, way down at the very bottom in tiny little letters, is where it says you're responsible for modules 1 and 3. So we're going to change this starting with the new program year. But for right now, the only module you'll be responsible for is module 1, nuts and bolts. And so now I have solved the mystery of where the DL policy is located and how to find this information. I also wanted you to see, we talked a little bit about with Elena and digital literacy. There was a lot of real good digital literacy information here under the helpful links. And we've put some forms over here, some sample forms for consent for virtual services with students, laptop loan agreements, hotspot agreements, things like that that you all might be able to co-opt into using for your own. I know a couple of my people have already. So we're redoing the DL stuff. We're going to make sure that what becomes a policy on the 1st of July, what modules you're required to take will be counted for either PAL or LIT designations in your required PD. Previously, that had not been allowed. It was additional to those hours that you had to get. So now it will count as a part of your regular PD requirements. So we're trying to make that a little easier for you and incorporate DL in a way that lets you facilitate it much easier. It makes a lot more sense to us. And so that's really all I have.
Lori, there's a question.
Yes.
Is the change for only requiring module 1 going to be written down somewhere?
Write it down. I can write it down. We can put it on the agenda. I guess we can send it out in a transmittal if you like. That I'll write.
We owe everybody some documentation of this for sure.
Yeah, we can put it in a transmittal to go out that'll be effective to the end of the program year.
Good question. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Lori. Yeah, we're going to really sharpen up the distance learning kind of guidance into either a letter or a guide. It kind of sits in a lot of different places, and that's confusing, I think. Now that we can kind of incorporate this remote learning aspect into kind of a broader guide, look for that during the summer. I think we can get that put together in early summer, have something out that'll make it easier for you to kind of know where everything is and what the requirements are. We're also looking at those the kind of, the requirements for training PD, because those, I think we need to align up better with our AEL rules on professional development. Okay, Lori, I'm going to take the screen here and go back to our agenda. Okay. And move into some of the next areas. These are just mainly some notices that we have coming up here. Have I shared it yet?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So we had the contract deliverables information, and I wanted to remind everybody now on the pandemic period webpage, we have a link to all the deliverables and the changes in due dates on some of them. So look in those quick links that are over on the right-hand side, and you'll have an at a glance of what the new dates are for the deliverables. Under notices, I wanted to bring to your attention that we have an online conference coming up here with the Texas Peer Mentor Network on June 12th and June 19th. These will be 3-hour sessions. Ann Sabino has been working with Amarillo College to take that show online and put together a very compelling agenda for you related to career pathways in the state. Next week, we're anticipating the registration information and session descriptions to be posted. And then starting on the 14th, we're going to do something very exciting. Elena's on my team has been just a complete maven for wanting to get this going, but we're going to switch the conference call to something called a Teams live event. So it'll be offered through Microsoft Teams, but it's going to be a special feature called a live event. And this event is, when I say live event, they mean it. This is kind of a way to broadcast a online presentation to thousands of people. Now, we don't expect thousands of people for the conference call. We're happy to have 300 or so. But what we're wanting to do is start to get everybody familiar with the live event, for us to get familiar with it. It's going to have a lot of the functionality that, we're used to in Zoom and other things. But it has a lot of other production functionality that make things very easy for us on the back end. We want to get comfortable with it, and we want you to get comfortable with it, because our plan, is to do our Summer Institute, which is scheduled in July, in one of 3 different ways. One of the ways is should we still unfortunately be in stay-at-home status, do the whole Institute virtually, much like they're doing the Pure Mentor Network conference in June. The other option would be to do it on-site at the hotel that we have already booked, but also do it on the live event. That way, if you didn't want to travel, or you couldn't travel for other reasons, or most importantly, you can't send everybody to the meeting because you can't afford it. We always have people complaining because they want to bring their staff and they don't have enough staff, or the room's not big enough for us. We want to really transition to having this as a model for us in the future, so that you could come as directors and coordinators, but that, 18 people at work, or 28 people, or 100 people at work could also listen to sessions. So I'm kind of seeing this as the model for the future for us, and I'm really excited about that. So I guess it's really only 2 ways. We're either going to do it all remote, or we're going to do a hybrid. But look forward to that. We're going to start testing this on the bi-weekly call and maybe some other events, so we can get familiar with it. It's not going to be the only way we do the Summer Institute, because we're working with TCall for some other delivery options, but we want to make a portion of it available this way. But it's going to change the way, if we go remote, it's going to change the way we have to do the agenda and stuff too, because obviously nobody can sit there for 3 hours or 5 hours and watch a conference without just falling over out of exhaustion. So we're going to have to splice and dice the sessions up a little differently, with some side breakouts or something like that. So we're in discussion about that. I'm excited about it. A lot of creativity on that topic. So thank you, guys. And there's some guidance here. The live event can be used and supported through Google Chrome, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge. The good old Internet Explorer and Safari browsers don't support the event. Sorry, Apple users. And there's some other guidance there. So get familiar with that. And if Elena's online and wants to say something, you're welcome to chime in, Elena. She's been doing lots of homework on this thing for us. So I'll leave it open if you want to say a few words, Elena.
Thank you, Anson. So for everyone who received the agenda, there is a link. And Anson, if you'll just scroll up the agenda a little bit, right there, that blue, there's a short video that Microsoft has on their support page that gives you a pretty good idea of what it would look like from an attendee side when you enter a live event, to show you where the caption options are, where Q&A section is, how to submit a question during that time. And just to give you a heads up, there is not an open chat pod like we have in Zoom, but there is a great function for submitting questions that will help us on the back end to moderate those and to get you the most accurate answers and most in-depth answers as soon as we can, and make those responses either publicly for everyone attending or privately where it's specific to your program. So definitely be on the lookout. We will send out links coming up next week. We look forward to it, and we appreciate your patience. I know that it might seem like we're transitioning from one thing to another thing to another thing, but as during this time, as we all kind of find new ways to serve students and serve others, we are also on our team doing the same thing to help integrate technology into the way that we work on a daily basis. So thank you all so much. And if you have specific questions, please feel free to send me an email.
Thank you very much, Elena, and thank you for your heavy lifting on that. She's this is like a hobby for her. She's just so excited about this live event, and I am too. There is some questions in here. I see one from Susan Gussler from Austin Community College about PD requirements related to do they apply to individuals that are doing remote learning where there's direct hours versus individuals that are just doing distance learning. The PD requirements apply to distance learning instruction only. So the thousands or hundreds of teachers out there, thousands that are doing remote learning don't have to go through the DL modules. Those are specifically designed for distance learning only. Good question. Thank you, Susan. And there's a lot of questions. It looks like they're getting answers on GED Manager. We'll be looking at those afterwards if we need to provide some additional guidance. Thank you, Mahalia, for answering those. And I'm glad to see y'all are excited about a hybrid type event for the conference. I'd be very excited about that. Wouldn't it be great to be able to do a conference where instead of 300 people, we have, 3,000? Because we could have that many, 1,000. That'd be great. We have a lot of people in the field. And then it also allows us to record the events in a professional way, transcribe them and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to move on back to the agenda and share my screen. There we go. And move into professional development and turn it over to T-Call to kind of talk about these events as we wrap around to the top of the hour.
Hello, this is Beth Ponder at T-Call. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I hear you fine.
Okay, great. So I just want to run down some of the things that we have going on, and we're continuing to add events and professional development as need arises. So this list will change a little bit, but Mahalia already mentioned the first two, which are on the new MSG report, the Manager Monday, which will be on the 11th, and the Teacher Tuesday on the 12th, and both of those will be at noon. We're doing a virtual training of trainers for CASAS, so that's going to be interesting. We're spreading that out over 3 days. The Technology and Distance Learning Virtual Conference will be May 14th and 15th, total of 6 sessions, 3 each day, and those are all available for registration in the PD portal. We're also doing a training of trainers on integrating services in AEL workforce and voc rehab with Tiffany Johnson, and we're looking forward to that. We have a Workforce Wednesday coming up on the 20th, preparing students for the job search. And then our first annual AEL Instruction Virtual Conference, which will be May 29th and 30th. 3 sessions each day. 1 day is a Friday, 1 a Saturday, specifically for your instructors. So if you have anybody who needs a few more PD hours, there's an opportunity for you. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask you to be communicating with your staff that if they're registering for a PD event, but they're not going to be able to make it, to please go to their transcript and withdraw. We are having a number of people on wait list to get into PD events online. And if somebody's taken up a seat, but then doesn't withdraw, then that waitlisted person doesn't get an opportunity. So I would appreciate it if you would share that with your team. And that's all I had, Anson.
Okay, was there any other questions that come in? I think we're probably pretty much tired out here. I'm looking through here real quick. We'll go through and really summarize and look at some of these GED questions related to GED Manager and stuff. That's part of the process, is kind of hearing from you guys about it, and I really appreciate it. And if there's no other questions, I see a question just pop in. Let me see what we got here. I just want to thank everybody. You get to see me in my backyard. You get to see Travis in his garage. Veronica's in her garage. You guys are all over the place, and that makes this kind of exciting and fun. But I appreciate your engagement. We will be communicating completely with you guys as much as needed. If you need anything personal from me, you got something coming up, please let us know. back to a discussion Travis mentioned about points of contact. I did want to remind you, we're going into May. This is a time where people change jobs in education a lot. And I know that, we mentioned the signatory authorities. Some of them had gone out of date. Please keep us up to date on that. Retirements. I've gotten notice of one of our directors retiring. Hasn't been made public yet, but if you're retiring or changing jobs and you're a director, please let us know. Let us know anyway, because we're going to miss you if you leave our system. But we definitely need to make sure that we have the points of contact as strong as possible, especially as we are remote. And this is a time where, people start to really make some shifts, typically in education. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you forget about it because so much else is going on. But we'll kind of keep asking you about that over the next few months so we can keep our contact lists up to date. And if you have changes to your email contacts for anybody in your organization that you want us to start, you want them to start getting our agendas and stuff, send an email to me or Elena Zachman, and we'll get that updated for you. With that, I'm going to leave it and sign off. And I really appreciate everybody. Have a great weekend. And we'll leave this chat open. Deb will hang on for a little bit. I'll hang on for a little bit. And we'll see if there's any last minute questions that come in. But many thanks for everything you do.
Thank you, Anson. Thank you, everyone. There was one final question. Anson, where do they go to change, to send that information to you? Is it to someone in your office?
Yeah, they can just send any change of contact information can be sent to me or Elena related to contact information.
Okay.
Or grantee information. If you're changing signatory authority, that should go to Travis Weaver's team, Renee, Ashley for the next week, and then Kara, please.
And
But
all my-
Anson, there's actually a form.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you email your grant manager, we can provide you with the form.
Perfect. That's
Wonderful.
right. About y'all's form there. That's important. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions.
All right.
So thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Beth and Liz. I appreciate it.